Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It's 5:06. Good Wednesday morning to one and all. Grab that coffee. You're listening to O'Connor and Company. Coming up at 6:35, Cal Thomas. 7:05, Christian Day Talk. He's the White House correspondent for the Washington Examiner, and he'll recap President Trump's Michigan rally. A lot of fun watching that last night. 7:35, John Reed, Republican candidate for Virginia Lieutenant Governor. 8:05, Joe Concha. He'll discuss his new book and news of the day. And at 8:35, General Jack Keane. Today is the 50th anniversary of the fall of Saigon, and he'll tell us about that. I'm Julie Gunlock, joined by my friend Hans von Spakovsky with the Heritage Foundation. Good morning, Hans.
Good morning, Julie. And we should know today is day 101.
What?
Right?
Yes. Are we going to do that all day like yesterday?
Yeah.
Happy 101.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's lots of serious stuff going on with his presidency, but it's also clear that he's having fun.
Oh, my gosh. The rally yesterday?
Right, huge party. And then yesterday, if folks want a little bit of amusement, the White House put out a list of the 50 biggest hoaxes, fake news of the first 100 days, too. And it makes for funny reading.
Yeah, it's funny if it weren't so sad.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Gretchen Whitmer, biggest loser of yesterday, did not put a file folder in front of her face. Was very funny. You could tell she did not want to be there, begrudgingly there. And then he actually called her up to the podium. I mean, her team this morning must be like, oh, what are we going to do with that? So, she hugged him when he came off the plane, sort of this nice welcome. So he's working hard, knocking her out of the running for the next election. Anyway, other news. You actually mentioned this morning. I had missed it last night. But apparently that Wisconsin judge, Hannah Dugan, the one who sort of shepherded a criminal out of her courtroom to avoid ICE officers.
Right.
There's been an update in that case.
Yeah, and he was there over domestic abuse cases.
Right, with the victims in the courtroom.
With the victims in the courtroom, and she basically spirits him out of the back door of the courtroom so that ICE agents can't pick him up. He's someone who's here illegally, and she was arrested by the feds, charged with a felony and a misdemeanor for that, because that's violating federal law. And yesterday, the Wisconsin State Supreme Court suspended her and said, she's been accused of a felony and a misdemeanor, and it's their job to ensure the proper running of the courts. And it's hard for anyone to have public confidence in a judge who's been charged with a federal felony and a misdemeanor. So no more holding court for her. Other local judges will handle her cases.
Yeah, it is. This is a perfect example of what a mess our courts are in this country.
Yeah.
That this judge, so essentially what happened is you sort of highlighted there, she is accused of trying to help. This is the guy's name, Eduardo Flores Ruiz, who is an undocumented Mexican immigrant. She helped him avoid arrest by federal immigrant officials after he appeared in her courtroom in Milwaukee for a pre-trial conference. The victim and he was in the court because he had assaulted, I guess, his girlfriend and roommates.
Yeah.
And they were in the courtroom and they were terrified of him getting off and then, coming to, hurt them further or worse, or his friends coming to hurt them. Friends, I say in quotes. She speared him, like you said, outside a back door. She sort of said, she came out, she berated the ICE agents.
Yes.
And told them they had to go somewhere.
Sent them, said, you got to go talk to the chief judge to get them out of her courtroom.
Right. So then they left, but they left one federal agent sort of watching.
Right.
And that federal agent reported that she had sort of taken this guy into her anteroom, into her back office, and he left out a back door. So they, of course, caught him. Now, of course, the left...
but only after a chase.
That's right.
Because as soon as he got out of the courthouse, he took off running and the ICE agents had to run after him to catch him.
Which, again, puts them in danger.
Yes, exactly.
This, I swear, this reminds me of some sort of bad, special victims unit TV show. But, the left is claiming that it's abuse to arrest this judge, that we're in a constitution. I mean, of course, they've got it opposite. But speak to that, to the commentary
that is,
out there.
What,
because it is. That is the
did
sort
they,
of
Did they
mainstream
think
commentary.
that state governments and local officials had the right to defy the federal government and federal law during the civil rights movement of the late 1950s and 1960s? We settled the issue of whether state officials, state judges, and others can defy the federal government in 1864. Okay, and if you are violating federal immigration law, if you're obstructing, trying to prevent enforcement, hiding people who are here illegally, often criminals who are here illegally, you can and should be prosecuted. And those who say this is unprecedented, no, it isn't. A Massachusetts state court judge, I think I mentioned this yesterday, was prosecuted by the feds back during the first Trump administration when she did exactly the same thing.
Really?
In fact, instructed her ordered ICE agents out of her courtroom, instructed her bailiff, take him through the back door and get him out of the courthouse.
So what does Hannah Dugan, does she face jail time? What's the sort of
Yeah, she faces jail time for this because it's a federal felony to do what she did.
It's funny. One of the articles I read yesterday said that people are just lining up to defend her, like a bunch of prominent lawyers. And everyone was saying, isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful, though? And I'm like, maybe it says her case is really bad,
Right.
that you need these heavy hitters in there to sort of figure out how to defend her, because it's pretty clear what she did was illegal. Witnesses, the chase, the victims of abuse being in the courtroom.
Yeah, this was a knowing, intentional, deliberate act by the judge, not some unknown act. And particularly someone who has sworn an oath to uphold not just the laws and Constitution of the state of Wisconsin, but the laws and Constitution of the United States. So she's an oath breaker.
Hans, I'm not in the legal field, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm not sort of in that world. What is going on with judges in this country?
Well, unfortunately, you have lots and lots of individuals now who are in not just state court judgeships, but in federal judgeships who they're coming out of these very liberal law schools where they're not being taught the law, they're not being taught the importance of the rule of law. They're taught that they should be social justice warriors. So they are the most ideologically biased judges I think we've ever had in our entire history are now permeating throughout the court system, and that's why you get actions like this.
But these are law schools, and I mean, do you see any changes among these law schools? Faculty realizing what they've created, institutions realizing that they have a monster on their hands.
No, because the professors and deans of so many of these schools they're doing all this deliberately.
Okay. Well, we'll talk more about this. We've got a lot more issues to get to, but first, it is 5:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Well, Canada had a big election, their election for prime minister, and everybody really thought early on, a couple months ago, we thought, okay, Pierre Poilievre, I think I'm saying that correctly, has a real chance here. He was conservative. He is the guy, if you remember, was eating that apple while talking to a reporter and giving these really salty answers, and he just a great performance. And again, a conservative nominee, more of a libertarian, I would say, for Canadian Prime Minister. And sadly, the far leftist Trudeauian candidate, Mark Carney, won the prime ministership yesterday.
So they elected Kamala Harris.
Yes,
basically.
Essentially.
Yeah.
They elected Kamala Harris after 4 years of Biden. And worse, I think Trudeau is even worse.
Right.
So it's a head scratcher. Now, everybody, of course, is blaming Trump and the tariffs. Not that Pierre Poilievre could have done a better job. No, I love this, sort of knee-jerk, let's blame Trump for everything, as if, Poilievre doesn't have agency and didn't run his own campaign. He could have talked to the Canadian people about what this would cost them. And let me tell you, this will cost them. 4 more years of these Trudeauian policies. Mark Carney is wasting no time hitting on the United States and on Trump, and I'm going to play that cut in a minute. But I think it's important to understand where Canada is, where its economy is. It's in the toilet.
Yeah.
It's in the absolute toilet. Texas has a bigger economy than Canada, okay? And here's Prime Minister Mark Carney, sort of spouting off here about Trump and the United States. Let's play cut 1.
Yeah, but it was over a long time ago, because part of the reason that the president reacted to Canada was because they've been putting huge tariffs on many of our products for years: lumber, milk and dairy, all kinds of things, and they're coming after us now for reacting to that.
Well, let's think also of what Trump wanted. He wanted a fair trade, and he wanted more sort of restrictions on the border so that fentanyl couldn't come over the Canadian border.
Right.
And millions of Americans have died and been harmed due to fentanyl overdoses, and it is coming through Canada. And so Trump simply asking for fair trade and that Canada work to reduce fentanyl coming over that border. How dare he?
Right.
Yeah. And this guy's saying it's over. I like what you said. It was over ages ago. It's been over.
It was. And think about the fact that, Canada, during World War II, even during Korea, Canada helped with major military forces, great units. They've reduced their military to almost nothing.
Yeah. Exactly.
They are totally useless when it comes to NATO. They're totally useless in the Pacific because they've become such a socialist nation.
Yes, healthcare. Yes. Let's play cut 2 really quickly. Oh, sure. Sure. Okay, that's enough. It'll be it'll be to discuss the security relationship between two sovereign nations. He's so angry about being called the mayor, about Trudeau being called the mayor, and Trump's constant invitation for them to become the 51st state. You got to love it.
Yeah, and I'm like going, what security relationship? Yeah. When they have almost no Army, Navy, Air Force.
You mean us
left.
securing you?
Yeah. I mean, that's basically what it is these days. And by the way, a long time ago, I actually worked for the U.S. division of a Canadian company. All the Canadians were so happy to be in the U.S. because they could actually go to a doctor rather than having to wait 8 months or a year
while dying
because of the socialized medicine that was so bad in Canada.
It's ridiculous. It is 5:22. Coming up, we have an update on that sweet Maryland dad. Turns out he was being accused of gang membership by his wife's ex, who is the father of her 2 kids. Juicy. We'll have an update. Keep it here. It's 5:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
5:36. Good Wednesday morning to one and all. You're listening to O'Connor and Company. Coming up at 6:35, Cal Thomas, 7:05, Christian Day Talk, White House correspondent at the Washington Examiner. He'll recap President Trump's really hilarious Michigan rally. At 7:35, John Reed, Republican candidate for Virginia Lieutenant Governor. 8:05, Joe Concha. He'll discuss his new book and go over the news of the day. And at 8:35, General Jack Keane. Today is the 50th anniversary of the fall of Saigon. He's got lots to say on that issue. I'm Julie Gunlock, joined by Hans von Spakovsky, the Heritage Foundation. Hey, Hans.
Hey, Julie. Thanks for having me in this morning.
Well, we've got another update on that sweet Maryland father, the MS-13 gang member who beat his wife, but just a sweet...
You mean the El Salvadoran human trafficker?
That's it. There's so many great things to say about him. Jenny Terre, our friend Jenny Terre, she comes on the show quite a bit. She's over at the New York Post. They have an exclusive. They've obtained court documents from a 2018, I guess, court appearance showing that Kilmar Abrego Garcia was being accused of gang membership by his wife's ex, who is the father of her two kids. In the documents, it says she's dating a gang member. This is the mother's ex. He alleges in the petition, it was filed in PG County Circuit Court. He was seeking an emergency hearing on the custody of the couple's two children. Obviously, he felt afraid for his kids because she had engaged in this relationship with a gang member.
Well, he should have been, too, given the fact that she herself had filed domestic abuse charges describing in detail how he beat her in court. And this is the hero of Chris Van Hollen. And by the way, we should mention again, because this is important, that remember, the Tennessee State Patrol stopped him just a few years ago, driving in Tennessee without a license, in a car he didn't own, with 7 strangers in the car.
Yeah.
And it turns out now, well, first of all, the Tennessee called the Biden administration, Justice Department, FBI, said, don't worry about him. Just let him go. Well, guess who owned the car that he was driving? A convicted human trafficker. Now, what do we think he was doing?
How much more evidence do people need to know that this guy, and yet Chris Van Hollen is still banging his fist on the desk, demanding he be brought back.
Right, and for all the due process criers out there, he had his due process in front of immigration judges. And by the way, I've actually read the original order of the immigration judge. Garcia and his lawyers admitted, I'm in the country illegally. And the only reason they didn't immediately deport him was because he said he was afraid he'd be targeted by this other gang.
Which no longer exists, correct?
Which no longer exists.
Yes.
Because it was broken up by the current president of El Salvador. So what due process more do they want?
Yeah. So why are the Democrats so determined to make this guy a hero?
Well, this is part of a long-term trend of the Democrats. They, for years, have been trying to erase the line between legal and illegal immigration. And you can see that in the way the Biden administration, one, opened up the border, started giving government benefits to illegal aliens, even though they're not allowed to under the law, and in the way, for example, big cities now, controlled by Democrats, have been changing or trying to change the laws to allow aliens to vote.
And that happens in Maryland, correct? In College Park?
Yeah, and it's now the law in D.C.
Is it really?
Yes, in the District of Columbia, the nation's capital. If you're an alien and you've been residing in the city for 30 days, you get to vote. And do they care whether you're here legally or illegally? Of course not.
It's astonishing.
Right.
So
realize that if Vladimir Putin came and lived in the embassy for 30 days, he could vote for the mayor of D.C.
But you think about our vulnerabilities with the Chinese and with, all sorts of the nation's enemies, how that opens us up to people coming in here, staying 30 days, being able to change laws. Incredible. So I have no doubt that this will be ignored by the Democrats, this latest information. It really just does seem like the only people really focusing on this are outlets like the New York Post and more right-leaning news media. We see very little coverage of this in the left-leaning media.
Well, the New York Post should be used to being ignored, given the fact that when they discovered the Hunter Biden laptop, there was really an organized conspiracy by the mainstream media, as Rush used to call the left-stream media, to say, we are not going to report on this, including at NPR, which they admitted.
Well, so far, this guy is still in El Salvador.
Well, he should be. He's an El Salvadoran citizen.
He's an El Salvadoran citizen. I think Chris Van Hollen has come home. Has he not?
Yes.
Yes. But there was that other congresswoman, I think from Oregon, who says she's staying down there until he's brought home. I think she's returned.
Well, that's too bad. It
I
would
know.
be really nice if she
Keep
stayed
her.
down there.
Stay. My theory on that was all of them were just looking for a warm place to go in the winter months.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah. It is 5:43.
Mark Levin, weekdays 6 till 9 on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
Latest news out of D.C., the nation of Qatar paid $61,000, almost $62,000 in travel expenses for Mayor Bowser and 4 of her staff members for a 2023 trip to the Middle East. The mayor's office said the trip was covered by D.C.'s Chamber of Commerce, which wasn't true. And then it said it was paid by the U.S. Conference of Mayors, which is also not true. I'm reading from a report from Scott Taylor. This is pretty shocking and kind of the norm. I just want to remind everyone, we had Loudoun County officials, Phyllis Randall, she's the chair of the council there. She went to Ghana. Julie Briskman, Uruguay. The mayor of Alexandria, France. They're always traveling overseas to these sort of sister cities or these, goodwill meetings.
Yeah. Good.
Why in the world?
Well, she did get a lot of goodwill. She got a free, all expenses paid trip to the Middle East. How does that help us? Particularly Qatar. Qatar is, I think, been reported as being the largest financial supporter over the past few decades of who? Hamas, a known designated terrorist group. Combine that with the fact that I think Qatar is actually the largest contributor to American colleges and universities. And what is it they are supporting and teaching at American colleges and universities?
Yeah, exactly.
Might that have something to do with the horrible agitators and protesters we've seen at colleges in support of who? Hamas, a terrorist group.
Yeah. The D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser says she takes trips around the country and the world to promote and strengthen the district's economy. But 7 News I-Team, this is Scott Taylor's report. 7 News I-Team investigative reporter Scott Taylor discovered some pretty shoddy record keeping around these visits. Shocker. As far as 7 News has been able to discover during our ongoing investigation, Mayor Bauer doesn't turn in any travel expense records at all. The district has no records of the mayor's trips to the Masters golf tournament in Georgia or trips to Las Vegas, Miami, Mar-a-Lago, Dubai, or Doha in Qatar. The pricey trip to Qatar is the only one they're focusing on, but it sounds like this is a regular thing for her.
Yeah, I mean, how much time does she actually spend in D.C.?
Unbelievable. And again, she has been saying, Mayor Bowser has been saying that the U.S. Conference of Mayors picked up the tab, but the Conference of Mayors, to this reporter, had no comment and told the reporter to talk to the mayor's office. So literally the runaround is what they're getting.
Yeah. If they'd paid for it, they would have admitted it. The fact that they wouldn't say anything means they didn't want to let it out that, well, no, what the mayor's office said was untrue.
This is the kind of corruption that is really gross, particularly when the city has skyrocketing crime and a lot of really difficult issues that it's dealing with right now. And she's off. But we see this with a lot of Democrat politicians. Like I mentioned, Phyllis Randall, Julie Briskman, Aaliyah Gaskin, who's the mayor of Alexandria, taking these little jaunts to, and I recall with Phyllis Randall's trip to Ghana, there was no exchange of, like, Ghana does not really help Loudoun County economy at all.
No kidding. It's not as if it's this extremely productive company that's going to bring in lots of exports and investments in Loudoun County. Come on, and look, when the foreign government, in this case Qatar, is paying, that raises tremendous conflict of interest problems
and security risks.
Yes,
in my opinion, I hope that I really credit to Scott Taylor for doing this report. This is great reporting, and certainly hope that more people take notice of this. This is, as you say, this is something that it does not smell right. But again, from a security standpoint,
right.
I think this is.
Look, what ought to happen is the mayor and her staff ought to personally, not the city, personally reimburse Qatar for all of those expenses that got paid.
And cut it out.
Yeah.
Stop going on these trips. They're obviously pleasure trips. And this idea that you're going to try to make some economic deals, it's just, I mean, a little above your pay grade, in my opinion, when it's dealing with countries like Qatar. It is 5:52. Coming up, we're going to talk about this sort of dust up at Amazon. They backtracked off their tariff labels, and also interesting news out of China. We might be winning that war, that tariff war with China. And then we'll talk about the Trump rally. Did you tune in for that? Did you see any of it?
I did watch parts of it, despite the fact that I had gotten up at 3 o'clock in the morning yesterday.
Hey!
But, you know, the amount of energy this president has
is
just astonishing.
It is.
And when you compare it to our prior president.
Oh, I know.
I mean, it's like the difference between night and day.
Well, what's been great on Twitter is there have been Stephen Miller, not the Stephen Miller at the White House, the reporter for The Spectator. He has been doing rolling examples of Biden sort of faltering, roaming around, getting lost, looking sort of disheveled. And he always puts on top of the video, we just missed it. And he's talking about the mainstream media. Very funny. But you're right. I mean, gosh, these rallies, Energizer, buddy. We'll talk about that and much more. Keep it here. It's 6 o'clock.
WMAL FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. WMAL.